Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Roadmaster diode wiring on a 2024 Chevy Trailblazer RS. Now this is going to be available in a few different configurations depending on what you need. You can get it with a variety of different umbilicals. You can get a straight cable, a hybrid cable, or a coiled cable. You can also pick it up with a 6-pole, and that way if you don't have those already, you can start to kit those together. And at the end of the day, you're going to be able to mimic the light signals from your coach to the taillights on your RV. There's going to be 5 main components when flat towing any vehicle, and there may be some supplemental stuff as well depending on braking system. But to cover the 5 main ones, first you're going to start on the vehicle side with the base plate. That's going to become the structural mounting point for all of the rest of your components, including your tow bar. That's going to be the connection point between your base plate and the hitch on your RV, and that's what's going to be towing down the road. And just like towing a trailer, you have safety cables that attach to your base plate as well as the safety chain loops on the back of your RV. You'll have diode wiring, which is going to transmit the light signals from the taillights on the RV to the taillights on your towed vehicle. A braking system is also going to be required, so we have our breakaway switch here. So in case of a catastrophic disconnect, this cable would pull and it would apply the brakes on the towed vehicle, bringing it to a stop so it's not rolling down the highway. And in our case, we have our air line. This is for our air brake system. We use the Demco Air Force 1 to get this to work. So using the air from our RV, this transmits to our main unit and applies the pressure to the brakes. The basics of diode wiring is truly just running the signal from the 7-pole to the 6-pole on the front of the towed vehicle, and those signals run through the wires that you'll run and tap into your factory light signal. So it does require some splicing, but the diodes act as a one-way check valve for electricity, and that means you're not going to have any backfeed causing issues to your factory electronics. It's not terribly hard to do, and it's definitely the most reliable way to get the light signals on the back of your towed vehicle, especially with newer lights. Most of these vehicles aren't magnetic, and this is truly the best way to do it. They're nice and reliable, and really you don't have to be a wiring expert to get them installed. Now speaking of that installation, I'll walk you through step by step and show you exactly what's required to get these diodes to work. But if you realize that this might be on your scope, maybe you don't have the place to do it, the tools to do it, or even the want to do it, it might be worthwhile to reach out to our dealer locator, find someone close to you to get them installed. Now to get your diode wiring installed, the best time to do it is when you have the fascia removed to get your base plate. And this is, especially on this vehicle, it's a small area where we're going to be putting pretty much all of our components. And when we go to put our fascia back on, we're probably going to want to leave this loose. And the same thing goes for the diode wiring. This is going to be one that more than likely we're going to attach our plug once the fascia is back on. But we need to prep ourselves now to have everything in place. And what we're going to do is start with our wires, and we're going to just tape it up to where we're going to be mounting up our 6-pole. Make sure you give yourself a little bit extra room. You can always trim off a little bit more, but it'll make attaching it to the plug a lot easier. And from here, I just routed this over, and depending on the braking system you have, you may or may not need to run this up in the engine bay. So if you're doing a stay and play duo or an InvisiBrake, those tap into the diode wiring to get the signal. So if that's the case, running a loop up into the engine bay, taping off about a foot, and then continuing on is going to be key. Ours today, we're doing an Air Force 1. It's not, you don't need to tap into it. So I simply routed our wires up. You'll see this single white wire. This, I peeled back all of the excess wire until I was able to put my ring terminal and ground our wiring. Having it grounded up front means that we don't have to worry about it downstream, but also all that excess white wire that I cut off, we're going to be reusing it downstream to make our jumper between our 2 running light circuits. Once you make your ground attachment, there's multiple grounds, you can pick any of them. I'm going to just continue with our wires, and what I did was zip tie it up to the frame. Pulling down this panel is going to definitely be helpful because that way we can get a nice clean path back. We have an axle as well as our steering components, and we want to make sure that this is not going to get caught up during normal driving. So make sure that you're zip tying it down, keep it away from any moving parts or hot parts. And as we go downstream, I'll show you how to do that safely. Using the factory wire brackets that we have for hard lines, make sure you're not zip tying it onto the hard line, but the bracket is a good mounting point to keep everything tidy and safe going down the road. So we just made our way back, zip tying up. And then once we got to the fuel tank, I just kind of wrapped it around making my way back to this rear cross member. Now this is a moving cross member, so we don't want to attach it to here, but I used the factory wire loom and then this bracket on this module to go a little bit further back till we get to our rear fixed cross member, and from here is where I started splitting our wires off. So our yellow and brown, that needs to go over to the driver's side taillight pocket, so I just zip tied it up here, and that way we can run this up and get our wires attached. On the other side, I did the same thing with the green wire, just ran that across, put it over here, and we're gonna make sure when we get this ran up that we're not gonna make contact with the exhaust. Now the white wire that I saved from that ground, I routed this up. There's some factory wire loom that's tucked behind the rear fascia. Zip tie that up because this is gonna jump over from our taillight circuit on the driver's side over to our passenger. So obviously diodes tap into factory wiring, so the first step is going to be getting our taillights out. The small flathead screwdriver, just pop out both of these panels, these little caps, and that's going to give us access to the T15 Torx bit. So we'll get those loosened up, and then we can remove our taillight. Now to get your taillight out, once you remove the hardware, there's going to be some alignment pins, and a lot of times these are pretty tricky to get, so the best way you can do it is just kind of shake the taillight back and forth to loosen it up, and then from here, just kind of give pressure towards the back until we get those alignment tabs out. Once I get it popped out and I show you where those tabs are, you can put a little pressure. Now sometimes you can use a trim panel tool to pry on here, but you do run the risk of chipping your taillight. So I kind of, that's last ditch effort. A lot of times just kind of moving it back and forth can get this to pop out. And if you do pry, you can kind of go on this plastic portion to give that pressure back, but really try to stay away from the taillight area. And once you have your taillight in this fashion, we're going to start peeling back the electrical tape and some of this insulation, because it's going to make it easier for us to get our diodes tapped into place. And we're going to be probably putting them down here in this pocket. They do take up a little bit of space here, so I'll probably end up splicing in right about here where that zip tie was originally, but peel back enough to where we can really get those wires loose. With the insulation peeled back, I'm going to cut our green and red wires. And this is going to be our stop and turn signal combined, but also our running light signal. So with these snipped, we're going to go through and strip these back. And I would suggest stripping it back a little bit further and then doubling it over. It's going to give it a little bit more bite when we put the spade terminals on. Now you're going to take the blue spade terminals that are on your diodes, and it doesn't matter which ones you grab from, just make sure that they're the blue ones, and we're going to crimp these down. Now make sure that you have it properly seated in there, and after you crimp, give it a slight tug. You want to make sure that, you know, long term these connections aren't going to be loose, so making sure that you do it right the first time is going to be helpful. So with that in place, I'll just get the remaining 3 in and do the same thing. Now grab 2 of your diodes, and on the out portion, those are going to go towards the plug on the taillight. So we'll put one of them on that side here and the other one on the other, and then just get the corresponding color and attach it to either one of the ones up top. So green here, we'll put our green connector right here, and then our red on our red. And then that last connection is going to be the wires that we have fed into the pocket. So at this point, we need to pull those up. So if you have a string with a nut or something that you can run down to tape up to pull the wires, it's going to make your life a lot easier. But I have an airline tube that I'm going to feed down, and you should have room through this pocket to be able to pull those up. So I'll get our wires pulled up now. And the wires we're pulling up on the driver's side, make sure that you have the yellow, the brown, and that white jumper wire that we have. Now we have quite a bit of excess here, so I'm just going to trim this back. You can leave a little bit and zip tie it underneath if you want to, but we still had plenty. So I'm going to split our wires, our yellow and brown. And our brown wire is the running light circuit, and this has to jump over to the passenger. So what we're going to do is strip back the brown and white wire. And you may notice that you have one yellow spade connector. It's for larger gauge wires. That's going to go with these joined together. So twist them up. We'll crimp this down. And then we're going to connect this to our running light diode. And in our case today, it's going to be the green one. So we'll plug this in. And then our yellow wire, we're just going to put that blue spade connector on, and that's going to attach to our red. And what I'm going to do, just for protection of these wires, you don't want these to pull out or separate. And so I take electrical tape and just wrap them all in a bundle. And what you can do is peel back the double-sided adhesive tape and stick these together. And then I just run electrical tape all the way around. And that's going to create a nice wire strain and protect our wires and allow us to tuck these in before putting our taillight back in place. And when putting this back in place, just try to get your diodes to tuck in this pocket. That way you can still get your taillight put back in place. And once we get this snapped in, we're just going to head over to the other side so you can get that taillight taken out. On our passenger side, it's going to be roughly about the same. We're still tapping into the green and red wires, and our connections, our running light, being that it's green, will be the white jumper, and then our green, which is our right turn signal, is going to go to the red. So I'll get this taped up, put our taillights back in place, and then all that's left to do is get your 6-pole mounted up and tapped into our harness. Now, again, that's going to require us getting our fascia put back on, but I'll show you how to get that all attached. So with everything else mounted up, now we can get our diodes wired. And pretty simple here, we'll grab our 6-pole, and we have plenty of extra wire here, and that's okay. I am going to cut a little bit and split all these so we can start making the connections. Before I get all of them split back too far and stripped, we'll take our boot off the back of the 6-pole, and you can just slide this back for now. And now we can peel these back to give yourself about an inch and a half, maybe 2 inches, to kind of just spread them out. And then we'll take our strippers and just peel back about 1/4 of an inch or so. And on the back of our plug, it's going to denote where all the wires go. And the way to get the wires attached, a small Phillips head screwdriver, you're going to just back this screw out. Don't take it out completely. If you drop them, they're really small and hard to get back in place. But there's going to be embossed letters that will tell us where to go. So at the 12 o'clock position is TM. That's our tail marker. So we'll put our brown wire there, and then we'll continue on. I'll show you exactly where they go once I have it hooked up. So just make sure you don't have any loose strands. And as you put this in place and we tighten it down, you don't want to get too crazy here, because actually over-tightening it can damage the wires, and that's not going to make for a good connection long term. So we just back this out a little bit, make sure it's open, put this in place. So we got it all wired up. At 12 o'clock position, as I mentioned, TM is our brown wire for tail markers. GD is ground. LT is left turn, that's going to be yellow. And RT is right turn, which is green. Now, if you have a charge line, that's going to go in the center post for that 12 volt. And generally, S is left open for either indicator of certain braking systems, but predominantly we don't use those. Now, something that you can do just for added protection is put RTV silicone along here, and that's going to seal up the plug, make it watertight, because this lives on the front of the vehicle. The chances of these breaking down premature is pretty high. So I'm going to grab some RTV and just kind of goop this up before putting our boot on. Now you can slide your boot over, and we're going to grab the small length of wire loom and just slide this on the wires. It'll just make everything look a little bit cleaner, and tuck that excess into the boot, and then we're going to electrical tape around the entire thing to create a nice seal. Now we'll get the 6-pole mounted up to the mounting portions, and we're going to be using a self-tapping screw that goes inside of those arms that come out. I'll just feed this in. Get this one started as well. And we'll snug this down. At this point, we've officially installed our diode wiring, but before we hit the road, we need to test to make sure that it's working properly. I'm going to be using a test box to simulate an RV, but before you hit the road, hook up your umbilical to the 7-pole on your RV, run through the light signals, and make sure that it's working properly. And when running through your signals, make sure that you check all the functions. So we'll start off with our running lights. We'll do our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and then finally our brakes. And that was a look at installing the Roadmaster diode wiring on a 2024 Chevy Trailblazer RS.